Welcome back, everybody, this week in America. Thank you for joining us on the program. Our guest is John F. Hunter, author of the book Living the Christian Life, a simple, easy-to-read, basic starting place for understanding Christianity. The book will challenge Christians to evaluate their Christian experience and to grow spiritually. John is a retired prison chaplain, pastor, missionary, and evangelist. He's been married to his wife, Sandra, for 44 years. They have 4 grown children. Today, they are full-time ministry volunteers. John has developed many biblical studies for adults and children. He's well known, respected by ministry organizations and churches in the U.S. as well as abroad. He's considered a trusted advisor and consultant for pastors and churches. He studied Bible at Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary and other Bible colleges, holds degrees in business and sociology. And John F. Hunter, our guest on the program today, author of the book Living the Christian Life. John, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us today.
It's good to be here.
It is a very simple to read book, and I understand that's what you wanted to do. You wanted to come up with something that basically is the simplest, easiest to understand, and complete guide to understanding Christianity. That was the goal in the beginning, wasn't it? To make this something simple that people could read easily and would be beneficial to them.
I had 3 goals in mind when writing the book. First of all, it had to be biblically accurate. Second of all, it had to be complete and leave nothing out. And third, it had to be simple and easy to read and understand for anyone from 3rd grade up.
And it really is, and it's a standalone book as well, which is something that's impressive. You don't have to have a whole lot of supporting books around there and looking things up. Everything that's relevant you have right there for us in your book.
One day I was at the church and I was in the fellowship hall and I had a concordance and I had a Bible and I had 2 other versions of the Bible and I had it all spread out on the table. And somebody said, that looks like way too much work. And I agree. So what we did, we wrote all of the Bible verses out for you in the book so you don't have to go and look them up. Of course, you know, if somebody's reading a book and it says, look at such and such verse, you're not going to put down the book and go look at them. So we wrote them out for you.
And for over so many years, people would do just that. Go see this and look at this, and here's a reference. You've got it all there. That's why the book is so impressive. Living the Christian Life, John F. Hunter, our guest on the program. Book available all around the country and information available at John's website, which is johnfhunter.com. You can log on directly by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And the book, too, John, is for people of all faiths as well. There's something there that will service everybody, isn't there?
Yes, there is. This book can be used. It was written with the idea that people may read this who are Buddhists or Muslims or Christians or some other faith, but do not understand really what a Christian is. There may be people who've never heard of Jesus Christ, people who've never been in church. So they can read this, and it's all explained very simply.
It is, and the book is called Living the Christian Life, and you address a number of questions, what a Christian is, and you just touched upon that. And you talk about maybe the most accurate description you ever had was back, 1970 in Vietnam. Talk about that definition, and it really says it all.
Well, you hear that a person is, that a Christian has a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. So several of us at the chapel came up with the definition that a Christian is a person who has a personal relationship with the person of Jesus Christ.
And that's very basic, and that says everything. That really lays it out.
Sure.
We said in the beginning, this is simple and easy to understand. The book by John F. Hunter, our guest on the program. And you also go into what Christians believe. Talk a little bit about that.
Say that again. The question.
What Christians believe that you address in the book.
Well, what we address in the book is we address about 5 different areas. Salvation. How do you become a Christian? Baptism and church membership, and how do you become a church member? And what is baptism and how does it work? And the Lord's Supper or communion. Some people call it the Lord's Supper, some call it communion. The Bible uses both terms. Church membership and the spiritual growth or discipleship. You know, once you're a member of the church and once you've been baptized and once you've taken the Lord's Supper and then you have the problem of how do you grow spiritually. It's not the end, it's the beginning of a big journey and you get prepared to grow spiritually through 6 basic things, and I put them in the book for you.
Yeah, and let's talk about some of those, the 6 essentials, as you call them. First, just prayer. Talk about that, because so often people get confused. They almost think it has to be formal. You have to set aside a time and do again sort of a ritual. What exactly is prayer?
Prayer is simply talking with God. It's spending time with God. It's listening to what He's trying to tell you. It's meditating on His Word and thinking about Him and talking to Him and telling Him that how much you love Him and how much you appreciate what He's done for you, and telling Him the things you need help with. It's like sitting down across from the table with Jesus and speaking in the name of Jesus and talking to God. Just simply talking with God.
John Hunter, our guest on the program, we're talking about his new book, Living the Christian Life. And among the essentials as well is fellowship with other Christians. Talk about the importance of sharing.
The importance of sharing and being in fellowship with other Christians is some of them will learn from you, and you will learn from them. And you will find out things that you missed. You may read a Bible verse and miss something that they saw, or you may be on a wrong track. You may have a wrong idea, and they can say, wait a minute, are you sure that's right? This is what this verse says. And so we learn, we get corrected, and we spend time with other Christians. And the Spirit of God working with several Christians is just like a fire going up through a pile of logs. It causes a draft and the heat and the power from. But if you take one of those logs and lay it over in the grass by itself, it's like a person who wanders away from church and doesn't spend time with the other Christians. They'll smolder, they'll smoke, they'll get cold, and they'll wander into temptation.
Something that's been a very important part of your life is Bible study, especially with young people, and we'll talk about that in a second. But talk about the power of Bible study and how that's sort of like with fellowship. It helps everybody, doesn't it?
It does. If you believe that the words of God are in the Bible, then you have the absolute authority of God Himself speaking to you. Now, over in the Old Testament it says, thy word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against thee. Now, if I hide the words of God, that's the words of the Bible, in my heart, then I have power of God living in me. If I turn around and I say, well, God can say, let there be light, and light began to shine simply by His word. And He hadn't even made the sun, the moon, and stars till 3 days later. And the same thing happened when Jesus walked out on the edge of the boat and said, peace be still. His words were powerful enough that it calmed the storm and the sea. And if we have those words in us, we also have power.
You're listening to This Week in America. The guest on the program is John F. Hunter. He's the author of the book, Living the Christian Life. I mentioned before the Bible study and how important that is, especially as you're dealing with young children. Talk about Camp Cedar Crest and what you do with the kids there each summer.
At Camp Cedar Crest, we teach a program of Bible drills where they have levels they can work on. Level 1 is to memorize basic verses like all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, Romans 3:23, and the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord, Romans 6:23, and John 3:16, and God commends His love toward us in that while we were still sinners, died for us, Romans 5:8. So basic verses that any kid would hear in a church service with the preacher preaching at any Bible-believing church.
And you touch so many young people. Buddy John, I believe, is the nickname they give you. That has to be rewarding for, being able to go out on the road, do ministry. I mentioned your full-time volunteer ministers, but especially with the young people, because that's really the future. And as soon as they learn all of these valuable messages, they're better for it, and they make the world a better place.
Well, I always ask myself, what are children worth? What are they worth? Should we go down and buy them a $5 Bible at Walmart, or should we go to the bookstore and order a $90 Bible with their name on it that has all the helps in the back, just like a preacher would preach out of? Now, I have three primary goals. If they want it and they need it and they will use it, I don't scrimp on the money. If one of my buddies calls and, Buddy John, I need a Bible for Sunday school, I get the very best that's available. I don't cut corners. Someday they may think that they're not worth the very best. And some of these little girls will go out and look for a leftover that's left over when they're looking for a husband rather than look for the right one.
It's interesting. John Hunter, our guest on the program, pastor, evangelist, chaplain, missionary, author of the book Living the Christian Life. It's available all across the country. Information at John's website, which is johnfhunter.com. You can log on to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and be able to get information on the book. A lot of great examples in the book as well, and you talk about supernatural power, and you've got a story there where you're young in your ministry, you're traveling out west, doing missionary work, you're pulling your home behind you, and you have car problems, and you're frustrated, but you leave it all to a higher power. Talk briefly about that story and the impact that had. Basically, it changed your life at that point.
Well, when we got to the top of a mountain, we did not know for sure how close we were to the top of the mountain. I had a gasoline-burning 3500 1992 gasoline-burning truck pulling the RV up the hill. And when we pulled off to rest our nerves and rest our engine, but when we finally started up, we weren't that far from the top. But when we come down the other side of the mountain, I could hear that rod banging really loud in there. So we backed that trailer up and unhooked it at the truck stop. And we didn't hook it back up again. And I told Sandy we have to pray because we don't know what to do. We don't know anybody here. And besides that, you know what? God has a plan. We just don't know what it is. The next day, we went to a place that a fellow told us about it called a car store. But, of course, they didn't have any cars there. They only had the big trucks and boats. And I gave the phone to the fellow, and I had my banker back home on the line. And 2 days later, we rolled out of town. We never put a penny on the table. And we had a 9 years newer truck that run on diesel and had a 5.9 turbo diesel Cummins engine in it. And it still works for us today and gets right on up the mountains.
So
God just wanted us to have better equipment.
Yeah, you think this is, and some people would think, okay, this is the end of the line. We're not meant to do this. You had faith and you came out of it much better than when you started up the mountain.
Some people said, when you're trying to do work for God, Satan's going to try and get in the way. I never gave him any credit for that. I believe that from the very beginning, God looked down and said, you can do better than this, and wanted me to have a better truck to pull that trailer with. So he guided me and Sandy to pull down there and pray and go get a better equipment.
Living the Christian Life is the name of the book. John Hunter, our guest on the program, pastor, evangelist, chaplain, missionary. It's interesting in talking about faith, and you talk in the book about the importance of expressing faith, and again, using a personal story of a young man, 9 years old, and you had serious leg problems that eventually went away. Talk about that as well, because that's a very inspirational story.
From the very first memory of being a person, when I was just little, I had sores all over my legs, just like big boils or scabs or something, and they itched all the time, and I scratched them almost all the time. And my dad was a pastor and preacher, and he says, why don't you pray that God will heal them and then thank him for doing it, because he's working on it even if you can't see it yet. Now, that was a lesson in learning faith. When you believe that God is doing it, but you can't see the results yet, that's how God teaches you faith. And so from about 9 years old, I began to pray that way. And I prayed that way, and I believed that way. And then one day I saw there was a passage in Job about scraping his sores with broken pottery, and I knew what he meant, because I had used the backs of butter knives to scrape my legs when they itched, and I knew what it was about. We went to Illinois, and my stay with my aunt and uncle, and my aunt said she could see it looked like somebody poured cereal in there where I'd scraped them scabs off while I was asleep, and there was traces of blood on the white sheets. But when I was 12 years old and still praying and believing God was working on it in his own time, he showed a team of doctors at the university that I had gone there for something else. They came in and looked at that, and they went out and consulted, and when they came back in, they had a tube of silver medicine, and it was like a cream. They said, rub that on and wrap your legs in saran wrap, and then take it off when you sleep and put it back on all day the next day. In 4 weeks, they were healed up. I have no scars to show anything was ever there.
Amazing. And one of the many stories you'll read in the book, Living the Christian Life, John F. Hunter, our guest on the program, his website, johnfhunter.com. A minute or so left in the show. It's interesting, the 6 essentials that we've talked about. Number 6 is giving. And for so many people, when they hear giving, they're thinking monetary. You're a perfect example of someone who gives more than just money and touches so many lives in the process. Talk about the power of giving.
Giving of yourself to minister to the needs of others can be as simple as a pat on the back, an encouraging word. Some people may be hungry. Some people may need a blanket for the winter. Some people don't need money, but money is also included. You give to your church, you give to the ministries, money's included, but it's not all about money. Some people have more time to do volunteer work than they have money to pay. So it's about giving of yourself to others.
I'm going to take about 30 seconds here at the end, and you talk about continuing to grow spiritually. You're someone that's been doing this for a long time. Do you find that you're still continuing on that growth?
This is a lifelong process. You will not be perfect until you get to heaven. This world has temptations and problems that we won't have there. But you never arrive, and so it's a lifelong process. But tomorrow you should be better than you are today. And next year you should be more spiritually in tune with God than you were last year. So it's by continuing to do the 6 things like prayer and witnessing and Bible study and fellowship and worship and giving, you continue to grow for as long as you live on this earth.
It's a life-changing book. It's called Living the Christian Life, the simplest to understand, the most complete guide to understanding Christianity. The author is...
Let me point out the subtitle too.
Certainly.
Living the Christian Life. Are you ready for a supernatural and spiritual life with Jesus?
And you have a warning on the cover that says this book could change your life. The change is forever. And once you read the book, you'll fully understand that. And this is a change that's certainly in the positive sense. The author is John Hunter, pastor, evangelist, chaplain, missionary, with us on the program to talk about this very important book. His website is johnfhunter.com. And you can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly to John's website. Sir, thank you.
There is an Order Now link there. There's an Order Now link, and also it's available on Amazon, and it's also available from Barnes & Noble.
All the usual places.
Also available in audio book, ebook, and hardcover and softcover.
That is perfect. There's no reason not to get information and to get the book. The author is John Hunter. As you're looking that up, the book is Living the Christian Life. Are you ready for a supernatural and spiritual life with Jesus? John, thank you so much for being with us on the program. Congratulations on an excellent book. Well done. Like I said, it's life-changing for many people. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're listening to This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us.